Hello, welcome to the Vandal Factory podcast with me, co-host Henry Raby, also featuring Natalie Quatermass. On the Vandal Factory podcast, we talk about arts and activism and changing the world and organising and community work, and sometimes we need to do a bit of editing to make everything fit. So this is a bonus episode. It's the full unedited interview that I did with Megan Chapman and Janie Nicoll as they first appeared in episode 32, which was an episode dedicated to self-employed freelancers in the arts and cultural sector. Janie and Megan are both artists in their own right, and they also represent the Scottish Artists Union, which is one of the largest trade unions for artists in the country. They represent visual artists and applied artists working across Scotland. This episode is going out on International Workers' Day, so huge solidarity to all workers out there who are fighting the good fight, organising, bringing good things into the world and bringing communities together. If you want to hear more people from the sector, I'd recommend going to episode 16. We spoke to CJ from Black Lodge Press, who is an incredible visual artist. And of course, I'd recommend going and checking out Janie and Megan's work so you can see their visual work as you listen to this podcast. If you enjoy what you hear, please give us a like, please share, please subscribe, tell your friends, tell your enemies, and enjoy this very special bonus interview with Janie and Megan. Could you introduce yourselves and just tell us a little bit about yourselves as artists, first and foremost, because obviously the Artists Union should be populated with artists.
So my name's Janie Nicoll, and I'm a visual artist based in Glasgow. I've got a sort of practice that started off based in painting, but I do kind of big collage works now mostly. And I work for SAU 2 days a week at the moment, and that's as projects and campaigns manager. And I'll hand over to Megan.
Thanks, Janie. Yes, hi, my name's Megan Chapman. I'm a painter, visual artist. I'm based in Edinburgh. I am an abstract painter. Sometimes I also have multimedia stuff in my work, And yeah, I'm the rep coordinator and caseworker for the Scottish Artists Union, also working very part-time.
Before we go into detail about the union, I wonder, in your own experience, what is it that you like about freelancing? First off, I want to start with the positives. What are things that you go, this is, really fulfilling, that I enjoy as a freelance self-employed person in the arts?
The positives of being a freelancer for me, I mean, along with what Janie said, of course, yeah, the freedom, just the freedom of that. I like being in control of my own time to some degree, as much as possible, and just the alchemy that comes about from creating art, and of course also the relationships that come about from creating art, just the people you meet, the experiences you find yourselves in. I've seen and done things I never would have dreamed of because I've been able to be an artist. So yeah, those would be, I think, the freedom and the alchemy and just the creating something from nothing is just, that's the best for me.
I suppose as a freelancer, you can choose how and where you work to a certain extent, and you can creating your own artworks, your own projects, exhibitions and things around all that. And I suppose, like many artists, you might call it a sort of portfolio career. So I work part-time and I do projects in a sort of socially engaged way, and yeah, sort of take on project kind of work as I go along, as well as trying to develop my own practice. So yeah, I've got a studio. So I try to get to that as often as possible. So yeah, I suppose there's always a dilemma about, trying to maintain your practice when you are working and doing other things. But anyway, that's one of the usual scenarios for this kind of career of sorts. Megan, do you want to go ahead on that one?
Amazing. I completely agree. My own practice is more poetry, theatre side of things, but yeah, it's freedom is such a powerful word, and we're hearing that a lot with the interviews we're doing with freelancers, is like saying I can be the artist. I can, create my own portfolio, my own work. Well, we've done the positives. What are the barriers, the challenges that artists in your union, in your sector, what are the ones that you feel like keep coming up time and time again? The things that you're hearing a lot from artists in Scotland in the visual arts sector.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's just an ongoing scenario that the life of a visual artist or any type of artist is always going to be, well, it shouldn't be, but sadly is generally pretty precarious. And the sort of lack of funding in the UK, I think, well, it doesn't, it's not an easy path that people take. And I suppose as a union, what we are trying to do is to help artists to build sustainable careers. And yeah, by having things like our recommended rates of pay, and yeah, just generally giving support to artists because I suppose we know what it's like to be freelance and all the sort of hassles and issues that artists have. So we're kind of here supporting artists. We do like one-to-one member support sessions, and that's a way of us getting a sort of direct input from artists who are maybe running into issues or have troubles. We also do a lot of casework. So we can give advice and we can also sort of act on the behalf of artists when they do, run into hassles with either getting paid or different scenarios, obviously, to do with different aspects of being self-employed. Yeah, Megan, maybe you want to expand on that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, um, I think unfortunately art, again, I just mentioned the alchemy part, which equals sort of magic. And unfortunately, I think the general public and people that fund the arts also think there's an element of magic and that we're all out here, living on likes and shares and good vibes. And unfortunately, we can't pay our rent with those. So yeah, the lack of contracts in artwork, and that freelancers themselves sometimes they face exploitation, and that they even exploit themselves accidentally, or because everyone's trying to get along, everybody's trying to move down the line and get that job, and so you can put yourself in precarious situations and accept less than. And so those are some of the negatives, but the artists not even really realizing that they deserve to have contracts, or artists that even fundamentally still struggle with the concept that what they do is work and that they deserve to get paid a proper income. Yeah, I think there's a lot of kind of social and cultural deprogramming that needs to happen, if you will, so that artists can actually, stand up and demand the things that they require to simply live and simply create. But yeah, in casework, we deal with all sorts of issues, like Janie was saying. But yeah, the lack of contracts or bad contracts or non-disclosure agreements or just poor rates of pay, or even, health and safety issues, all the things that affect workers in the world affect artists. And so those things come up all the time. So the unions just tries to support, I also mentioned freedom, and yeah, we're all spread all over Scotland. And so the union can provide sort of a unifying force, an umbrella where they can kind of find a wee bit of shelter and get connected to the various resources that we all know about from years of experience and different and varied experience.
Thank you, Megan. I couldn't agree more. And I think that like within art sector, sometimes being an artist can be a very lonely individual thing. Um, but I imagine it's even more tricky for visual artists because at least some of us poets, we go to a poetry gig together, theatre makers and actors get in a room together. Sometimes visual artists might be on their own. And I know you've done work around, yeah, about working in a studio and making sure that people feel safe or that have don't feel anxious in a space they're meant to be creative. Um, yeah, I wonder if there's anything you could talk about that idea of the individual, but also the collective, and where that the work you do, is there any examples where it does make people feel less isolated and alone in connecting them?
I mean, I suppose one of the things that one of the campaigns that we've kind of been dealing with in the last couple of years are the lack of affordable studio spaces in Scotland. So there's one large organisation who I suppose has been criticised for like increasing the rents year on year. Um, there's been the pandemic and everything, and then the cost of living crisis and rents have gone up in general within society. And I think there's that sort of double whammy of artists having to pay higher rents at home or higher mortgages or whatever, but also having to pay high studio rents. And, you know, artists can end up just working from home and feeling more isolated as a result. So one of our campaigns has been about campaigning for affordable studios, because we do recognise that there's actually a lot more to having a studio than just having a space to work. It is about building communities. So what we have done in a sort of campaigning way has been to try and link up artist studios across Scotland and encourage them to become more kind of in better communication, and also giving artists more of a kind of voice to, yeah, I suppose, yeah, it is really hard to like sort of criticize organizations openly. But I suppose we are the sort of unifying voice where I suppose we are working on behalf of our members, but we're also working on behalf of the sort of wider artistic community, even if they aren't our members. So yeah, one of the things that we have is a learning program, and it's, I suppose, part of the sort of attitude that we've had with that is that it's like encouraging artists to enable them to campaign for themselves. So it's not about us doing all the work, but it's about encouraging artists to be more vocal themselves or more active. So yeah, enabling people to help themselves rather than us, taking on that kind of load. So yeah, I don't know if I've explained that very well, but Megan, maybe you want to add a bit to that.
Yeah, well, I was also going to mention as part of what you do, Janie, too, the campaigns and our memberships. We have a membership survey, and then as part of that Affordable Studios campaign, we had a studio survey that went out, and a lot of our members, but even some non-members answered, and that was really helpful for us to hear them in a unified way of all the specific problems they're dealing with in their studios, or how much the rent had increased, or even the impact it was having on their mental health, and then to be able to have those numbers and those statistics and use them in our lobbying efforts, and also share them across social media. Because I do think when artists work alone, whether it's over the kitchen sink or in a fancy studio, wherever they are, there can be, like you mentioned, Henry, disconnected. And so when you see these stats that have been shared on social media that another artist anonymously is saying, I'm really struggling with my mental health right now, I feel really ashamed that I'm worried about being able to pay the rent, that kind of helps everyone. It's a horrible situation for that artist. But then another artist goes, oh, I thought I was the only one that was struggling. Because it's in this social media climate, it's not like we're getting on social media and popping a painting up and saying, hey, everybody, I'm not going to be able to pay my rent this month, So I think in that way, some of the things the union is really good at being able to do is to have that survey and have that massive information, so that we can share it with our members, but also share it in, bigger, broader ways that can make a real difference down the line. The Scottish government, won Scotland to be a Fair Work nation in 2025. And so the Fair Work framework and the Fair Work dimensions, those have been like embedded in our contracts, that we have a set of contracts that we offer our members, and they're already Fair Work contracts. And so those kind of things, I would hope that any freelancer out there, whether they're in Scotland or anywhere else, get a contract. Don't think of a contract as some scary big businessy thing. Think of the contract as the start of a conversation. It's the start of a negotiation. You can't get what you don't ask for. And the contract is just your way in to say, hey, I kind of need this, this, and this. And even if you don't get everything you want, you can explain to them why you asked for these things. Because again, it's about demystifying the process of how much it costs to be an artist, and to show these folks who are commissioning artists, oh, right, I hadn't even thought about the labor it takes you to plan this, or the labor it takes you to go get the materials, or the, so I just think contracts, as well as if in Scotland, the fair work dimensions, I think those two things together just give a real foundation for freelancers. And of course, join your union wherever you are. If you've got a union, join it.
I think one of the sort of issues that can often, well, I suppose something that is an issue is just ongoing, is the fact that when people are actually in jobs, they don't realize how hard it is to earn a living when you are a freelancer. There's that sort of fundamental lack of understanding that, you have to kind of fight for every contract, every project, every commission. And yeah, as Megan is saying, quite often there is that sort of general misunderstanding that, things have to be paid for, and I think there's a sort of misunderstanding of the sort of real cost of art making often. There's an in-kind kind of economy that goes on within the art, especially within the visual arts, that has sort of underpinned the art scene, just this kind of expectation that, artists will make work, and that, there quite often there's that lack of understanding that there should be like artist fees, like exhibition fees and things like that. So it all makes life a lot harder for artists. And I suppose one of our worries is that, the increasing cost of higher education, all these things make the people that are actually working with the arts can end up being far more privileged, because obviously people who are from a worse economic background are going to look at the arts as not a viable way of earning a living. And obviously the resulting situation would be that there isn't, a lack of equality within the arts that is going to ultimately make the arts a much more boring and, irrelevant kind of a place. So anyway, there's all these kind of issues going on, and I suppose Scottish Artists Union as an organisation is very concerned with equality, EDI, equality, diversity, inclusion, all these things. In our members survey, we know that a lot of our, like 40% of our members have neurodiversity issues or have high percentages of caring responsibilities. So yeah, I think, there's a sort of trajectory of sort of privileged white male artists that is very difficult from people from, more sort of minority backgrounds, or who have, as I said, caring responsibilities or other diversity issues. So these are things that we're quite aware of, and we're sort of picking up in our member surveys that we're doing every couple of years. So yeah, these are all things that are part of what we're kind of working with and trying to, I don't know, sometimes it feels like an impossible task, but we keep on keeping on, as the song goes.
Well, what a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much, Megan and Janie, for joining us. As we ask all our guests, if there's a song you like to recommend that we'll play and we'll put on the Vandal Factory playlist on Spotify. Janie, if you want to just elaborate, keep on keeping on.
Yeah, well, there's a song called Keep On Keeping On, and it's a phrase that we quite often end our newsletters with, because it is that thing of, things aren't perfect, but if you want to be an artist, and every time I write that to end a newsletter, I think about that song. So yeah, the Redskins.
Well, you've come as a collective. You've bargained with me. You've negotiated. You get 2 songs. So, Megan, what else are we going to hear?
Um, when I first came on, I was saying that just an Interpol song, just a favorite band of mine that inspires me in my work and always makes my life seem fresh and good, even when we're fighting dark battles. So, yeah, I would say The New by Interpol, but non-political. It's just a nice, pretty song.